Another quad witch expiration has come and gone. Not as many fireworks as we're going to be having next week for the 4th of July, but there were some, especially in that XLK. Kind of a quiet week for earnings. We'll talk about FedEx, Micron on Wednesday, getting a little bit of a boost from Baird this morning. What's up with Nvidia? I got a stat, and I don't want you guys to look it up. See if you can figure it out. We'll be doing that early in the show. Mish Schneider, 835. Take a look at the Modern Family. Looks to be a choppy day here on PreMarket Prep.
Welcome to Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep.
This is a volatile puppy here.
It's all about execution styles and strategies.
Happy Monday, everybody. We are basically flat here, 55.35, mirroring the range from Friday in the pre-market session. You have the buck down 24 cents, 105.20. Going back to the bonds, down a quarter point, consolidating near the high of the move, 119 and 18/30 seconds. Crude holding above 81, up 80 cents, 81.13. Gold in the green by 570 at 23.36.90. Silver up a couple pennies, 29.64.5. And what's going on with Bitcoin? Bitcoin futures are down a little over 3K. That's 61,240. Let's bring them in. Let's get it out of the way for you sports haters. Dennis, this has to be one of the biggest sporting events of your entire life.
It is, for sure. I don't know what to say. It was a great game, Friday night, had a lot of fun, enjoyed it for the weekend, and now I've got the dread starting again, like the butterflies, a little bit of gut rot. It's like I'm nervous. It's going to be a really tough game for both teams tonight. So bring in AB because he's our waging specialist here. We'll find out which way he's leaning. Florida's slightly favored here right now, but it's really close. So, I mean, Oilers have all the momentum, but Florida still has home ice advantage. Florida does not want to become the first team, since 1942 to blow a 3-0 lead in the finals and go down as in history as the biggest choke job. Oilers want to finish the job, but I mean, it's all, if they don't win tonight, it's all kind of for nothing. So I don't know what to say. This is going to be a really tough game. AB, what are you saying? How are you feeling?
In terms of betting, I always kind of like to lean toward the underdog. It's pretty even though the odds. I mean, they're both minus odds right now if you just want to take money line. So Vegas is saying it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a lot chippier tonight than we've seen the past couple of games. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kachuk trying to set the tone and say, okay, you want to come back to Florida? This is our house. We're gonna we're not going to make it easy for you guys for the Oilers. Yeah. So look, I'm rooting for a game 7. So at the end of the day, I'll probably end up throwing some money on the Oilers tonight. But let's,
it's a Momo market, Dennis. It's a Momo market. Well, it's kind of ending.
Yeah, I'm taking it back to the market here.
No. I'm talking about the Oilers. The Oilers got.
They're Momo right now.
Yeah,
I hope they're not going to be like Nvidia though. I hope they're not going to be like Nvidia, running, and then boom, hit the wall.
Grabowski's not practicing. He's scared. He's wretched. I'm telling you, I am totally confident.
Predictions from the chat. Chat, give us your predictions. Donkin Dave says the Oilers win. Donkin Dave says the Oilers win 4-2. I hope you're right, Donkin Dave. I'm going to say the Oilers are going to win 2, but it's going to be a nail biter right to the end. McDavid overtime goal is what I'm calling here right now. AB, what are you calling? We're all calling it right now. We picked the Panthers and kicked you out.
I'll go 5-3 Oilers with an empty netter to make it a 5-3 game.
Joel?
6-2.
Oh, for Oilers? Oilers is going to roll them.
And I'm going to get an Oilers
TJS
shirt.
says 6-2. The chat thinks the Oilers are winning, but they're saying this all for me, I think. Look at all the Oilers predictions.
Okay. Statistics.
Jeff says the Red Sox are going to win.
Statistics for you guys. And don't look at your charts. And don't look on Google. And I might be wrong, but I when is Nvidia had a 3-day losing streak? When is the last time Nvidia has had a 3-day losing
Oh, it's
streak?
been a while, eh?
Yeah.
Well, we had the one pullback. Well, I want to say like a month ago where it dropped 5%, but maybe it was that just a 2-day losing streak.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Chat.
It sounds like a
Mid-April?
long
April.
time
You got
ago.
it. Yeah.
When was it?
April.
Hasn't lost for 3 days in a row since April. Wow. It has just been a monster. And I mean, it was so overbought. So due for a check back? Definitely. Is the AI story over? I don't think so. Is this the all-time highs? I don't know. Valuation got really stretched. It's hard to say. You know, like I said, if I had on for a trade, I'd sell. I've paired it twice. You know, like I didn't get any out at the top there, but I want to hold a core position in it still. So I'm like, maybe, you know, I should, you know, Brian Shannon talking to me, maybe should write some calls on it. But then again, you don't get the timing on that, right? Then you got to either cover the calls or get it called away on you. So I don't know, I'm just sitting here and looking at it, and you know, it's obviously off $18 from the highs here now, but kind of textbook goes into the XLK on the Friday, the big rebalance here.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Really what the news is, and then the hangover here from Monday. Obviously, you know, they ran it up before that, but then they sold it off the day before the XLK just to screw the maximum amount of participants there. We know Apple was going to be a lot less weight, and the XLK Nvidia was going up. So you had big moves in both Apple and Nvidia. Apple had a wicked move, and I mean a very wicked move right at the close. If you look, it was trading before the 350 imbalances came out. Apple was trading happily around 211, came out with a huge sell imbalance. They're like, whoa, wait, oh, boom. Well, it was supposed to have a sell imbalance, so it kind of was by the book. I think actually originally, though, they were showing a buy imbalance, and then they flipped. That's what caught people by surprise. They're like, oh, it's going to be the opposite. No, it's not. It was a huge sell. Then gap down the close. I did buy the closing print, was able to flip it out after hours, which was nice on Apple. Usually these moves, go the other way. And usually when you have a stock going into an index, it does have a Monday hangover. So we're kind of seeing textbook stuff really from Nvidia. And, I would expect Apple to show some relative strength here today. But we will see. We will see. We will see. Everybody's silent. Oh, you on mute?
Well, I was going to say that at least, let the record show that when we talked about last week, the beginning of last week, the case for chasing, we were right at least for a day or two.
A day.
So no one can say
Yeah.
that we officially called the top by talking about chasing Nvidia where it was, because we were right about that. But then now that story has slightly changed.
It's the only thing that was working, for the last couple of weeks, but that changed on Friday. It changed big time on Friday, and you have to adjust. And you know what we saw on Friday was value names, beaten down names, laggards, all showing a lot of life. That life continues here this morning with Nvidia's weakness, the chip weakness. We're seeing Applied Materials down, Qualcomm down, AMD is down here. You're seeing the banks trade higher, and you're seeing, the cyclical, some of those trade higher. And you're seeing, some of the oil stocks hold on, and they're trading okay here this morning. So you're seeing a very mixed market here once again. So it seems like Nvidia's loss is the other stocks' gains. Although, like I said, it seems like China never gets any love, although I guess they're up a couple cents today. But laggard. It was laggard Friday, and it feels like it's a little bit of laggard Monday as well. Does it last? I'm asking the chat too. Does it last?
Well, I'll just go into the Nvidia, and you got people say, oh, 110, 106, 103, whatever, come up with the Fibonacci retracement. And I'm moving it. Oh, like the 8-day, you got to buy the 8-day. Well, if it doesn't hold the 8-day, buy the 20-day. All that to me, it's let the market prove to you something. Let it prove that, right now, I can tell you, I've had my head on a swivel at 122.50 area. The only reason to that, well, there's a double reason. You hit that in the pre-market, you hit 122.54. You only got one daily low in that area, 122.57. So that's it. It's not more. It's barely a 2-star. I'll make it a 2-star. It would have been a 1-star last night, but since it's the 7-8 day low and the pre-market low, look for that. Do I think that's going to be the low of the move? Not by any imagination. And if I was holding out a little bit longer for the week, I think you got to look at the 117.50 area. The reason for that, you have 4, 5 lows right in that area. So there is. We'll see. We'll make a low. We'll undercut. It will rally. We'll test the low. Then it will have the a couple days of consolidation above the low. Then the little up day, and then we'll see if it can get its jets on once again and take back a retracement of the move here. But it's market dynamics here and selling pressure after being added into the index and trading down once again. That first 3-day losing streak in Nvidia. Last time that was, AB nailed it. This guy can't get nothing by him. It was back on April 12th. Went from 90.62 to boom to 88.19. Then it went to, I believe, 88 and then 87.42. So there you
It was
go.
overbought. Overbought.
Actually, it was
And
the
again,
17th, 18th, and 19th is those 3 down days. So
this is
let's
why
see.
you do have diversification. This is why you do it. This is why you don't sell all your money and put it all in Nvidia. When you're feeling like doing that, it's probably the top. So to everybody's call, that show that we did, which was a little bit of a joke, by the way.
I know. People
Everybody
take
won't
us so
hold that.
serious.
They won't. But anyways, like I said at the end of the show, I said, we're not totally serious here. I'm not selling all my stocks, but everybody wants to, there's, like I said, it seems like there's 75, 80% of people like me and 20% absolutely hate my guts. So anything that they can get on me, they're going to say about it. But I mean, we've been right on Nvidia all year. Were we right last week on it? In a joking way, no. But we were saying multiple times it's overbought. I'm not chasing it up here. I'm not putting new money into it up here. So even though I feel like doing it because it was the only thing working in my long-term portfolio, and it really was. I mean, when we looked last week and you had the IWM just ratcheting down Monday, Tuesday, making new lows and everything else, I'm like, why do I own any stocks except Nvidia? It's the only one working. Now you're seeing why. Because, when Nvidia stops working, the other stocks start to work. So the diversification still helps. Again, we don't know how this is going to play out. All I know is Nvidia was definitely way overbought. It's selling off a bit now. I said yesterday on Friday's show, could see 110, could see $100. Could definitely happen. It felt like and I said if I had it on for a trade, I would sell it. Don't have it on for a trade, have it on the long-term portfolio. I've sold it twice. I bought it 3 times, sold it twice, kept the core position that I originally bought from 410, riding that out.
Are you going to be able to trade tonight, or are you just going to be pacing the floor?
No, just pacing.
Pacing, you're not going to be doing any
trading?
trading?
Oh, yeah, my guts are all in knots. I couldn't even sleep last night. I'm just like, nervous. How did you feel before the big Michigan game? How did you feel? Same
How
thing?
do I feel? Well, there's a lot of them, but
no, but this year was the big one.
National
They won a national championship. How did you feel that day?
Confident.
Confident.
Yeah.
Confident? You were confident.
Yeah, because there's just, so many players going to the league. That's the way I look at it. Just so many pro type caliber players and I looked at Washington. Yeah, they had a couple guys on their roster and stuff. But to me, that's why, Bama's, dominated over the years. Georgia's dominated. It's like, how many guys you send into the league? And Michigan's sending a lot this year. And you know what? Look out for them next year because they are stacked. They're going to be sending more guys to the league. And with the 12-team playoff, you never know what can happen. But we are going to get in a lot of trouble if we don't move on.
You brought it back to hockey. We're going to get fired here.
Let's go, last week, toward the end of the week, we talked a decent amount about a few drug stocks, some biotech stocks.
Oh,
we've got some more news this morning. So this is coming from ticker ALNY. I'm not exactly sure how you say the company's name. Is it Anilum? Anilum Farming.
Alnilum.
I don't know how you say it. I trade every once in a while. I don't know how the hell you say the name.
I know how to say the ticker, and that's ALNY. And the company announced some positive phase 3 data for it has a heart drug that it's out there. And the data, if you go into it, I was reading an article about this morning, it's like every single patient in the study had improved outcomes using this. It's vutrisiran. It's treatment for patients with ATTR amyloidosis with cardiomyopathy cardiomyopathy. So, I mean, it's this. It seems like it's not a weight loss drug per se, but we know one of the benefits and why the weight loss drug market is so big is because in the United States you have so many people that carry extra weight and then thus have heart problems and cardiovascular. Heart attack still the number one killer in the United States. So anytime you get this positive phase 3 trial data for a cardiovascular drug, it can be huge. And the stock now is up 36%. And this isn't like a small pre-revenue biotech company. This is a $20 billion company. So you're talking about now this company's set to open, 10 billion or like $8 billion higher than it was on Friday, all because of this trial data. That's showing me that this is a big deal for the company and hopefully a good, this drug comes out and is good because there's so many people in the United States that do deal with these types of problems.
I don't know much about this drug or this company. I just know the XBI weekend trade, which obviously we've given to this chat for a long, long time, works again. XBI, ALNY is in the XBI. We do the trade because you often see M&A on the Monday morning, but sometimes you just get bonus where there's some news, good news on a drug, and it comes out. XBI trading up 1.37% here today. So it's a pretty darn good day for the XBI traders out there. Big move. I want to do technicals on XBI because ALNY, give those if you want, Joel, quickly, but it's so hard to do on these drug stocks. It's these huge gap ups. Sometimes you get follow through, sometimes you don't. It's difficult to trade these things just on technicals when they have such a big move. But do technicals an XBI.
Well, this is where it's at. You see all these question marks up here? That's where the heck it's trading at right now. Right now, if you woke up and you saw your stock and you had this in your portfolio and you were a trader and you saw ALNY trading at $227.50, the trader in me, boom, out, sell, bid, hit, bid, okay? But the pre-market trading, I could give you the high. The high comes in at 235, but like the long-term investor in me, if I had it, I'd be like, wow, this could be huge. I mean, heart disease, reduction in that. I mean, that is the leading cause of death in the United States. So, man, oh man, this thing could super have legs. So, there's a short and long-term perspective. Let's go to the XBI. Take a look at that. I
like that. Just before you leave ALNY, that 242 all-time high, Joel, too. So where was the pre-market high?
Not quite there. 235.
So much resistance up there. We're going back to 2022 and 2023. We had a double top at 242. So, I mean, major, super duper resistance. Get a stock up and up $70 into an all-time high. It's often not a bad idea to take a little bit off. So I'm more of a seller on this ALNY pop. Bring us to the XBI.
But just one more thing. In the high, you talk about confluence. The high on the month after the double top, 234.70. Your technicians were out there at 4 a.m. and they're like, oh my gosh, 234.70. That was the high after it made the double top. And I got absolutely annihilated back in February of 23. So that's a good number. I'll make it a 2.5 star. XBI, I mean, it's just one stock. I don't know how big of a component it is. Ooh, I got SBI in there. Let's look at the XBI. Man, room up to 95, but I don't know. I'd be keeping an eye on pre-market high. Longer term, I'd be looking 94, 95.5 area. If it did get the hop up there today, I would look for a little bit of a fade on this. Top of yesterday's range, 92.65.
I got a question for you. Is being long XBI and all these value names the same thing as being short Nvidia? Because it seems like, I don't think it's a coincidence that XBI had a day. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of value names had a day on Friday with Nvidia coming off. So I don't know if I want to load up on all these value names. It all depends on what you think.
They always give you a chance. They always give you a chance.
It seems like it, yeah. And you're coming into resistance on XBI here again too. Like I have XBI in the long-term portfolio. I feel like dumping 95 and I'll probably get it back at 85. It just seems like that's the way. And the weekend trades are just great. Like maybe it's just a trading vehicle. Maybe it's just trade or whatever and then hold it through the weekends because he often gets a Monday pop. I don't know. I think you just got to find those edges there. But being a long-term investor in XBI for I've had it in and out of my long-term portfolio for for a long time. I'm like, it seems like it's just it has good times and then it has really bad times, and it's like it can't and look at the all-time high on XBI. Like you think, oh, here's the markets making new all-time highs. Well, you're $174 back in 2021. I mean, this CTS been cut in half. And maybe it's because, the market went into a tougher time. Obviously, interest rates, which we've talked about, been a big part of this. I don't know if I really want to be super long XBI until I start to see interest rates actually dropping. Because the biggest cost for these companies is cost to borrow to fund the trials. And obviously the smaller ones. Bigger ones don't have that issue. They've got some money. They got cash cows. Lily's raking it in. But the little ones, they need financing. And the financing's tougher right now. So until you actually see the Fed start to lower rates, XBI probably just hangs out.
Last night, I was driving back from St. Louis to Detroit, and I was passing through Indianapolis. And on the highway, from a very long way away, I was like looking up at the skyline. You pass Lucas Oil Stadium where the Colts play, and I saw the Eli Lilly logo. And I was like, man, maybe I'm doing too much with I'm so into the stocks that now I can recognize like a corporate logo from 2 miles down the highway. But passing by the building, I didn't know that Eli Lilly was headquartered in Indianapolis, but I passed by it last night and I was thinking, oh, they're doing pretty well right there. So Eli Lilly was on my mind as I was doing that last night.
They had the Olympic swim trials in the Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah, they set the record for
22,000 people.
How do you do that? How do you just bring a pool into a football field?
Well, now the Olympics in 28 is going to be in LA, and they're going to put the pool in SoFi Stadium.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it should be exciting. I feel like the Olympics hasn't had the same amount of buzz as it has had in the past, but I hope that this summer, I think we're missing like a couple big name American athlete. If you go back to like the Michael Phelps years, it's so easy to get really into it. But I can't even name that many like U.S. Olympians anymore. So it'll be either way. I'll be tuning in this summer. Hopefully it'll be.
I can name a lot of the swimmers. Did you know that there was a swim off for one of the spots? I know I'm going to bore the hell out of everybody on this, but the top six
swimming might bore us.
The top 6 swimmers are eligible for the relay. And 2 girls, one from Grosse Pointe and another young lady, they're good friends. They trade together, and they had the exact same time. So they had to go into a one-on-one swim off, right? And the winner would go to would be the alternate on the 400 free relay. And the girl from Grosse Pointe, she had the lead all the way until like the last stroke. This girl beat her by 4/100ths of a second. You should check that out. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And I won't tell you about my swim.
AB will bet on that next time.
Yep. All right, let's go to another a major story last week that we haven't spent too much on the show. I have another story about this one, but the car dealership hack that impacted more than 15,000 dealerships across the United States. And we've been seeing, it feels like at least we've been seeing more and more cyber attacks, hacks throughout the last few weeks. And obviously, most of these dealerships, there's not really a publicly traded company that owns the dealerships. Some of the actual, they have a bunch of different Ford dealer, whatever it is. But we're looking at AutoNation stock right here. You have other stocks in the space that might be affected. Carvana. I think right now everything's up and back and running operationally, but I'll just say real quick, how I found out about this hack was last week before I was getting ready to drive back to St. Louis. My car is, due for service. And I was like, I want to get my oil changed and all this figured out before I go drive a few hundred miles to St. Louis. So I called a local Toyota dealership and I said, hey, you guys got a time for an oil change today? And the guy's like, well, we do have time, but we can't process anything right now because our systems got hacked. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. And it's it's not just us. It's a big one too. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Thought it was like maybe a few, car dealerships got hacked. Next thing I know, I'm reading articles about 15,000 of them being hacked. I'm like, oh yeah, well that I got impacted by that. I wasn't trying to buy a car, but even my service I couldn't get done last week because of this hack. So I'm mad at whoever was hacking, because then I ended up having to drive back on my car with probably less oil in it than I should have had.
Stock really didn't go down much, a little bit last week. I mean, these hacks just are everywhere. Obviously, AMD had a hack, and I mean, this is a big one when you're not controlling and you can't even, pay out for an oil change here. I mean, or take money for an oil change. I mean, this is just an issue that's not going to go away. And that's why it's hard to really get long-term bearish, like on CrowdStrike or Palo Alto Networks. I own Palo Alto Networks in the long-term portfolio, because you got to think like, this is only going to get worse. And every time we get a major hack, these stocks perk up again. Well, it's just a matter of time before we get a really major hack. It sucks that we're in a world where, hackers are here and they're doing everything. But I mean, that's where we live. And these stocks, the cybersecurity stocks, are necessary. And the best of breed appears to be CrowdStrike now, but Palo Alto is still one of them as well. And then you can go into the Sentinel ones, and, they're getting into the worst of breed there. But there's so many of these names. If you just want to buy that ETF, it's HACK. Yes, the valuations are nosebleed on all these stocks, but the nosebleed for a reason is these hacks just continue to happen, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Look at this Palo Alto Networks. Holy mackerel. Quad top at 321.25. And then two other highs above that. But I'll just, man, if you are trading this thing today, have your head on a swivel. It's trading up 21 cents here at 321.67. When I see a formation like that, I really don't care about the two other highs. I really don't care about the gap recovery high at 327. So if you're a Momo trader and you're looking for something that has some potential to break out today, there you go. And it's also just the way it's coinciding on the monthlies too. Holy mackerel! Keep your eye on. That's a four highs at 421.5. I'll make that a 4-star.
It's a 321.5. Yeah, it's
three. What's
it's bouncing up, and if it can break out of there, then it starts to show life. I mean, I bought it on the earnings. Well, I actually didn't. It was Pelosi that bought it on the earnings gap down. Have they had their next earnings report? They must have, because that was in February, so they must have had it back in like May. I just don't see a big move on the chart, so maybe it didn't move that much on the last earnings report.
Dennis, what are you doing on your keyboard there? We are bouncing around. Look at this market, man. We don't know which way to go. Look at this thing. Got the accordion chart going.
And then there's this mixed, and it's really mixed. Like chipwreck still happening here, obviously, but taking it away from chipwreck land here, I'd say the majority of stocks are green. Yeah. You got the few majors that are red, but there's a lot of green on my screen here right now. S&P is obviously up only 0.1%, but you want to find the strength. We talked about it earlier. There's strength really everywhere except the chips. I think we should talk IBM. IBM, your value stock, your tech value stock started to show life last week when Nvidia started to show weakness, and then you get Goldman Sachs coming out here this morning, AB, and giving IBM some love.
Yeah, so Goldman Sachs analyst James Schneider announced a price target of $200 for IBM, currently trading at around 175. So you're looking at about a 10% upside there if the price target does end up hitting that Goldman Sachs analyst prediction. And this is, we've kind of been looking at some of these catch-up trades in the chip space, whether we were talking Broadcom started to perk up and kind of start catching up with Nvidia and some of the other leaders. If you've been buying AMD, you're not, too thrilled, I don't think, with the price action here in terms of, a lot of people expecting just any chip stock to go up like Nvidia has been. But IBM here, and we've talked, IBM, like you have the different money that the companies getting from the Chips and Science Act, stuff like that. But a lot of that, I think, is down the road. But either way, right here, perking up on this price target raise from Goldman Sachs. Goldman, of course, when Goldman comes out with a price target change, it holds a little bit more weight than a lot of these other banks that
more weight than PreMarket Prep. When we were talking about this one last week and we were pulling up,
I didn't say that. I didn't go that far. I just,
the second most well, I'll tell you what Jimmy Schneider did over the weekend. He looked at this chart and he looked at this 175 area and he's like, man, I got to get this into the gap. I got to do it. I'm going to upgrade it today. And that's what he did. Now you're in a really tricky area here, up on 15,000 shares, but wide open here. I don't know if we're going straight to 180 today, but boy, nice call here. 175.46 has been your recovery high since the earnings report. So at the top of the range and getting the old Goldman Sachs buy rating and targeted 200. So this one, keep an eye on that. Openings always more, very important to see if you got liquidity. People, hey, I'm just scalping out of this in 175. I could care less what Goldman says, but that's a great area for the week in IBM. Keep an eye on 175.
This old value tech trade is perking up here, though. Look at Intel too here, Joel. I mean, we have held the support of all supports, $30. Look at this chart. 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. There is somebody just loading up at 30 and not allowing it to go through there. And now you start to perk up a little bit. And you're starting to get away from it a little bit. I mean, not turning into an Intel bull here. And I do have this in the long-term portfolio, which has been a dog. I bought it at like 36. I'm already obviously down on it at 31. I'm just looking here as a trade, though. Maybe Intel's time. Nvidia's weakness, Intel's gain.
I mean, it's consolidation station. You need,
Big
you
time.
got top of the range here. If they can push it through 32, 40, you know what the Intel does a lot though? Is like, you get to all sleepy down here and you're like, whatever, I'm not going to buy it. And then, something comes out or they get it up. Well, they don't get many upgrades, but if this can work its way and establish a 32 bid, and I mean, that's like make the 32 bid look like this 30 and a 30 quarter bid. Then I'd say you got some chance for some room on the upside. Until then, that's major resistance. Several post earnings highs at the 32 and a quarter area for Smelly and Telly.
And then Cisco, even the last couple of days, perking up as well. Been going down, down,
Whoa.
down. And then I just don't think it's a coincidence that Nvidia shows a couple days of weakness here. Really, we had 2 days of weakness, and Cisco all of a sudden perks up. You can clearly see the rotation, folks. Like, it's blatantly obvious. They like selling Nvidia, and they're going, well, we're going to sell the PE as of 40. We're going to go buy the PEs of 15. And that's what the market is doing here the last couple of days. And again, we don't know how long. We've seen value have, these 1, 2, 3 week rallies, and sometimes only 1, 2, 3 days, and then they turn around and just roll over again. But right now, you can't argue with the charts. The value is perking up.
All right, real quick before we get to our special guest of the day. Actually, it's 8:34. Let's go ahead. I see Mish Schneider hanging out backstage, patiently waiting. So without further ado, let's give Mish our special pre-market prep welcome and catch up with her when we get back. All right, Mish Schneider, Chief Strategist at Market Gauge. Mish, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How about yourselves?
We are doing well. So we're it feels like at this inflection point in the market right now. And a lot of people are pointing to a lot of the leaders giving up some gains here, whether that be Nvidia, Apple, etc. But from what I understand, you're watching a lot of the sectors that haven't been making new highs, whether that be regional banks, transportation, retail. What are you seeing there?
Well, what's been so interesting is through this whole tech rally and all-time highs that we made, I think almost a record time of 44 times new all-time highs in the course of this year. We've had really basically nothing from those areas other than the fact that they have held up. When I say hold up, I mean they haven't exactly collapsed to a point that has been critical, but yet they have underperformed so grossly that at this point now, with NASDAQ finally taking a little bit of a pause, you have to say, what is the market waiting for and what does it mean for these areas, for the market, for the economy, for the Federal Reserve, for geopolitics, all of that. And I think that's why right now it's so key to be looking at the small caps, the transportation, the regional banks, and the retail. These are really the inside US-centric areas of the market, right? So small caps, there's buying coming in every time it gets down to around 198. If you're looking at IWM, it's sitting here right before the opening between 200 and 201. Through 202, that starts to look interesting. But if it breaks down under 198, trouble. Same thing with retail, our good old granny retail, XRT, hanging out, trying so hard to hold on to about the 75 level, gives it up. You got to wonder, what does that mean for the consumer? If you look at transportation, that's been probably the weakest of all of them, besides maybe regional banks. What does that mean? Why aren't things moving robustly? Why is all of the freight across the country not necessarily really performing well, with all this stuff about growth? And then the regional banks, of course, there's been reports, very quiet, about some commercial banks and commercial real estate that are having some trouble and getting downgraded. And that's another one that's been sitting. So they're all sitting right on life support. And I think that makes this week very critical. Forgetting about PCE and all of that, just looking right at that. If it holds here, buying comes in, we might see more rotation, and I don't think it's going to be negative for growth. It just means that we'll see more money coming into these areas. And if they collapse, I would wonder what that means. And I think, stagflation is still on the table because of geopolitics and whether now we're getting into a real seasonal bad period, not just in the United States, but there's still drought, or geopolitics, because even though they sought to take a back burner, they're still out there. And I think it'll either be that or recession will start to come back on the table again. And we don't know. I don't think anybody really knows right here.
Mish, I want to go back to you talked about recession, the bonds. I mean, we are really at an interesting point here in the market. I mean, it seems like we always oh, well, we're not going to worry about inflation and interest rates now. We're just going to focus on how great AI is going to make our society and more efficient and be great for every company and every human being. But there's a lot of negatives out here. I mean, the bonds are telling you that interest rate, are not coming down really anytime soon. And there's also other factors. Look at the geopolitical factors. Look at the climate factors. Look at crude. I mean, you could go the recession look, but if you wanted to be a worry wart, you could be more in the stagflation camp. Where are you at?
You just said it perfectly. I mean, I don't really know. I'm still more in the stagflation camp for a couple of reasons. One, besides the fact what you just mentioned with geopolitics and weather, and those are real factors. One thing that we're learning about AI and this surge in AI and data centers is that the demand for energy keeps increasing. And right now we're at about AI and data centers take up about 3% of the energy usage. They're projecting it to go to 19% by 2028. And this energy has to come from somewhere. And even though we know that they're trying to figure out how to use cleaner energy, there was a whole story last week about geothermals, which is kind of an interesting concept, but not perfect. Definitely clean, but not perfect. We're still going through the traditional routes of coal and natural gas and water. And then, of course, if you want to talk about utilities and how energy gets transferred, there's copper and silver for conductivity. So that's why the stagflation to me is more interesting, because we need these raw materials. We're not ready. Even solar. I mean, solar is a great form of energy, but it is not applicable to plug anything in without actual real electricity. And so, this is really where my mind keeps going right now. And I think we're looking at innovation to get past that at some point, but we're nowhere near there at this moment in time. So unless we go into full recession, because like I said, these sectors just give it up and we find out the consumers are too pinched, the Fed was a little bit too behind the eight ball again in terms of easing up a little bit, I think stagflation is where we're at going into 2025.
So if that's the case, Mish, where do you think, we should be allocating capital? Should we just be going, to cash, or should we maybe be thinking about where should we be going?
Well, I think you have to look at it in different pockets. I mean, obviously commodities and hard assets, which are still so incredibly underinvested, particularly in this country. we have the ratio between commodities and equities still at these historic levels. And so if the demand for energy turns out to be great and anything else flares up like geopolitics, or we have major storms, or the drought continues, now India, by the way, the monsoon season, which is really something that they look for, is now not necessarily as robust as they would like. So think about the things that India exports. Sugar, I'm always all about sugar, and I'm watching that very carefully. I think you have to keep looking at the gold and the silver and the copper. Uranium is kind of the new widow maker a little bit, but it's holding up. And then I think you have to keep watching those softs. I mean, people haven't really been talking about coffee, but coffee is definitely expensive and looking like it's getting more expensive. And sugar's always been my key barometer, because if sugar right now, which is over 19 cents a pound, starts to get back over 20 cents a pound, particularly if we have those issues with India, which is a huge exporter, then we're going back into pockets where you can not only invest but in those areas, but also in the metals as a hedge. But then you've got the energy plays. So I like those. I do. I heard you talking about Palo Alto and cybersecurity. We've been in Palo Alto for a while, and we've taken some money off the table, good money off the table. But now I heard you talking about this 321 level, and that's exactly what I'm watching, is a possible add. And then, I still think there are pockets of the consumer area that I like. Nike's reporting this week, and I think it's going to be a very interesting stock to watch, because we're going into the Olympics, and it's possible that that's been really undervalued. I'm still looking at my vanity trade. It may not necessarily be ready to fly, but there are certain stocks that interest me, like Ulta and Nu Skin and Coty. We already know that Elf and Eli Lilly and all the drug companies that have to do with the diet drugs have done well. So I think there are areas you have to pick. And one other area, there was a story today about the FDA has approved non-tobacco e-cigarettes, flavored e-cigarettes. And that's given a boost to like Altria and Philip Morris. But I'm watching Philip Morris for other reasons. I'm watching Philip Morris because of the fact that I think it's going to be a good gateway to determine whether or not cannabis is actually going to go more federal. It's been the biggest political football. And that's kind of, we have our tech stocks, but those are really where my eyes are right now.
Those are nice dividends too. I mean, if interest rates ever actually
know.
started going down, these stocks would probably get a lot more love.
I know.
Because, you Philip Morris 5.19%, you're like, well, I get 5% in cash, so why go over there? But I mean, if all of a sudden we can't get 5% in cash anymore, then these stocks start to become much more attractive. The Altria, Mish, that dividend has been like 8.5% here now for a long time, and I've been looking at it too, thinking, man, is it sustainable? Is the Altria dividend safe?
Well, I believe that they are circling like vultures around the cannabis industry. Now, what I know for a fact is Philip Morris has been involved through a company in Israel in terms of talk about vapes. A vape that's from a medical standpoint gives you an exact dose of what you need as, let's say, a cancer patient. And that's been something. But I also know that they probably, with all this commercial real estate around, are watching very carefully, and I would imagine maybe have some lobbyists going on there as well. Because think about it, the cannabis space, I mean, people go, oh, there's so much pot around, that's not going to be a big growth area. But I don't agree, because there's marketing, there's sales, there's distribution, there's packaging. They can make it as sexy as they've made the alcohol industry and the tobacco industry, which of course always has its problems because of addiction. But they can deal with that as well. And we know if we're going to go into any hard time, let's say we do go more stagflation or even recession, what do people do? They turn to things that make them feel better. So, this is, again, these are all theories of mine. I haven't seen hard evidence yet. But right, let's look at Philip Morris. It's trading between 99 and 103, and it's kind of sitting there. That breaks out, I would follow it.
Yeah, Altria too has perked up and looked strong over the past 6 months, up now 14%. Still underperforming. Actually, now at this point that the S&P 500 has come down a little bit, about the same year to date, up 10%. Altria is. Mish, before you hopped on, we were talking a little bit about cybersecurity, the increase of hacks. What are you seeing in that space, and which names do you like there?
Well, yeah, I mentioned Palo Alto, and I heard you guys talking about it. I've been involved in that stock in our discretionary part of our RIA for quite some time now. I bought it after it reported and gapped lower, so at around 277.
Yep.
And then before the last report, when it was trading up at 320, I actually took some profit. So I'm holding a partial position, looking to add. You know, what's interesting about Palantir, everybody talks Palantir. That stock has been hyped up as much as one stock can be hyped up and doesn't go anywhere. So I've kind of written that off. I heard you mention CrowdStrike. That would be more of a quant model holding. But for me personally, I would like to add more money into Palantir, particularly as you guys mentioned, if it gets through these triple tops at around this 320, 321 level. I think that's got a huge upside. And yes, cybersecurity is definitely a thing. No, it's a geopolitical thing. It's just not necessarily, rockets and bombs, but it is probably much more insidious a way to hurt us.
It's not just a thing, it's everything. I mean, every company needs to have cybersecurity. I mean, it's just not going to go away. There's no like, oh yeah, this is a fad and we don't need cybersecurity. The hackers are just going to say, oh, we're not going to hack anymore. I mean, so I mean, that's why these valuations, and the valuation on Palo Alto Network has come down from where it was at one time too. Like, this used to trade 100 times earnings. So, I mean, the company's obviously grown into its valuation to a certain extent. It's still not cheap by any means. I'm just bringing up the trusty Benzinga Pro just to grab the valuation recently, and we're 50 times earnings here. I mean, so it's not like cheap, but I don't think you're ever going to get Palo Alto at 20 or 25 times earnings. I just don't think it's going to happen. So, Costco, we talked for years of Costco, and it's like 40 times earnings. Well, it's too much, 40 times earnings. Here it is today. It's still 40 times earnings, but it continues to grow, and that multiple just continues to stay the same. Sometimes you just got to pay 40 times earnings for good companies.
Well, it's so interesting you would bring up, Dennis, valuations, because I've been really thinking a lot about that. I'm not necessarily a number cruncher fundamental trader, other than I like the story, the backstory, like we just talked about with, let's say, cannabis, for example. But the valuations are so interesting to me because so much of it is perception and not necessarily the actual valuation. Like, for example, Nvidia. There are people who really look at this stuff who have been talking to us and telling us, the valuation is still cheap compared to the growth potential of a company like Nvidia. And so the whole idea of valuation really stems a lot from the momentum and the perception of the investors in it. And then when the valuation gets overbought, like you said, or overextended in a company like Costco, does it matter if we're really going into a stagflation environment and people are going to be buying more of the staples? And that's why I keep looking at these other stocks that have been beat up in terms of the vanity, because I think in a recession area, people are still going to want to lose weight and they're still going to want to look good feel good about themselves. But yeah, valuation is really, it's a very scientific thing, but it's also a very emotional thing.
Two things before I let you go, Mish, and one being on the subject of taking profits on these things. I mean, do you have certain technical indicators that you follow? Is it just boom, price based, like percentage based? Because, looking at Nvidia now here, you pulled back, you hit 140, Micron earnings go up. How do you base? Because, so it's easy to get in, and it's a lot harder to get out. How do you look at something like Nvidia and some of these other tech stocks that have had big runs?
Well, essentially, if I want to make it really simple and fast, so what we do is we look at the average true range of a particular instrument. So certain things have a 20-cent range and certain things have a $14 range. It really depends on the volatility of that particular instrument. So if we look at Nvidia, when we first get in, we probably do not want to risk more than about 2 or 3 times the ATR of any particular instrument. With our quants, we've kind of rounded it off more to about 15% risk. And then in terms of the profit taking, it depends. If you're a discretionary trader, what we might do is raise the stop to no loss once we get 2 times the ATR in profit. And then we start looking at taking actual profits as we get to 4 times the ATR, 6 times the ATR, 8 times the ATR. And a lot of this depends on, of course, the market condition. In the last bull run, it's been easier to wait for those parameters, and we keep peeling. And then eventually we'll have a tail. If we get a decent correction, we might add back in, but otherwise we'll hold the tail with some kind of a trailing stop. So that keeps you in the game. But at the same time, when you get a turnaround like in Nvidia, we actually took a 4th profit target last week. And now with a dip, the quants might be willing to get back in, provided that we still have the trend strength indicator looking well. So that's quant language. From a discretionary standpoint, I'm much simpler. I took my profits in Palantir as I started to get 4 or 5 times what my original investment was in ATR. And now I have my tail. It's very, very generous. And now I'm looking to add because that's a good momentum stock. So there's art and there's science.
I like that. All right, one more before I let you go. Quad witch expirations. You've seen a few. Dennis and I've seen a few. Boy, oh boy, kind of real choppy action. You had that $87 trillion unwind. Turned out to be pretty choppy here. I look at this as a very important week in the market. I look at the closing price from the S&Ps, on Friday, and you have the end of the quarter coming, very quickly here. What from your experience in the markets and the quad witches expirations and stuff? What are a few key factors that you're going to be keeping an eye on this week, either technical or fundamental?
Well, I started out by saying, I know we've had a lot of words since then, is I'm really, really, really watching those areas, the inside sectors. We want to really see what's going on here in the US economy. And AI is great. Like you said, future, oh my God, it's going to save the world, blah, 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 has its issues. But we're still an economy that's based on companies that operate in the US, consumers that have to go shopping, transportations that have to move goods, and the regional banks that are definitely dealing with the very nuanced real estate area. And those are what I'm watching. If they hold and money's attracted, soft landing comes back on the table. If not, then I think we're going to have a much bigger sell-off, and 5,400 will break easily in the SPY.
Mish Schneider, Chief Market Strategist for Market Gauge, giving us a fundamental technical outlook on the markets. Always great to hear your cheerful voice, and we'll be dialing you up again real soon.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mish. All right, guys, that was Mish Schneider again from Market Gauge. Always great to catch up with Mish. We've got about 5 minutes left. Going to the chat, seeing if we've got any tickers thrown out there or big headlines we
we could do ticker time. We could do tickers. Chris Burr was out there. Somebody want to know something?
We also haven't done an earnings preview. So we do have a couple big companies set to report earnings this week. You have FedEx will be a big one because a lot of people look at FedEx's earnings as give us a gauge on how the market is doing or how the economy is doing, see how many goods are being delivered here and there. I don't know how much that is accurate anymore now that Amazon has taken so much market share of goods being shipped from FedEx and UPS, but it probably gives us still some sort of an idea of how the consumer is doing. Then you have Carnival Cruise Line as well. And then Mish mentioned Nike. Whoa, going full screen here on me. How'd that happen? There we go. And then we have, so Nike will be interesting.
Micron's probably one they're watching too.
Yep.
And it's interesting. They're buying this ahead of the report here again because you got a kind of a chip wreck going on here this morning, but Micron's have none of it. They do report. There was a price target increase Joe was saying here, which is helping it as well. But this trade of this being long earnings ahead of reports, I mean, let's just go through them here this morning. Here's your major reports. FedEx, up 0.5%. It reports on Tuesday. Carnival Cruise Line, up 1%. Reports on Tuesday. This is a day when the S&P is flat. So, I mean, you can clearly see they're buying stocks. GIS is up only 0.19%, but it's a food stock. It doesn't move much. Micron up 2.6% ahead of the report here. AVAV, I've still got the long-term position in that thing. It's basically flat ahead of the report. Levi, I'm long that just because it reports. BB, long that just because it reports. All these stocks were trading a little bit higher here. And then Nike up too. I mean, the trade just works. Being long stocks ahead of reports just seems to work.
Boy, oh boy, I don't know. I wouldn't be chasing this price target raise here at Baird. But couple things to look at here. At the bottom left, or the left chart there, 30-minute. Hey, looks good. We're bid at the highs of the session, up 358. What's there to worry about? What I'd be worried about, first of all, is what happens at this close. The closing price from Thursday at 144.19. Second highest close, or actually it's the third highest close ever for the stock. I think people will be trimming into this rally. I don't think, if like you talk about your pre-earnings run, I think right now,
I think so.
Yeah, I think I see people are selling into this red bar from Thursday. I mean, it
I
can
think
move
so.
overnight. Yep.
I think actually I'm looking at the sell side on this thing too. I don't own it, Micron, but I'd be looking, at this pop this morning as a gift. If I owned it, I would sell into this.
Yeah, Micron. I mean, I like Micron and Broadcom now have both sold off a decent amount here. AVGo as well, which of course reported a couple weeks ago. You're now looking at like a 10% haircut taken off the top here. Quickly, yeah. You take the stairs up and the elevator down, and that's what you're seeing here. But I don't know. I mean, I still would be buyers of these stocks on a little bit more. If they continue to pull back, I wouldn't be scared to come in and buy some Broadcom or buy some Micron. I mean, there's just no way we can go from this much hype around the chips and what's going to happen with AI over the next 5-10 years to a couple bad days in a row, then the story is completely over. I don't think that's what we're seeing here, but
it could cool off though we
yeah.
basically had a 3-month journey here on some of these stocks here where they've just been nonstop. And then you had the upside capitulation where AVGO just got stupid. I mean, the earnings report were fine, but they're doing the 10-for-1 stock split or whatever it is. I think it was 10-for-1. And they just couldn't stop buying it. Well, now you catch those people. So I think you're right, though, AB. Like, let's think about if Broadcom, if it wants to get stupid and go back down to $1,400-$1,500, I think I'd be a buyer of Broadcom too. So I don't know. I want to strike right away. I hate catching the falling knife, and that's exactly what you're doing with Nvidia, AVGO, all those. Let's wait for a bounce, boom, and then a retest of the bounce, and maybe you buy that retest or something, as opposed to just saying, wow, the story's going to come back eventually. And, you bought that at $1,700 last week. Now it's $1,650. And now they're still selling them because it's a crowded long still. It's a crowded long still. And sometimes it takes more than a day or two to just shake out those short-term weak hands.
Someone in the chat mentioned LCRX, and that one that looks like is actually held up throughout the last few days better than a lot of
LRCX,
than a lot of other chip stocks. So
it's come off too though, 1,100 to come off 5%. Not as bad as AVGO. Clearly see these things all move together. These all move together. So right now, this market is clearly moving to value, IBMs and stuff, but that can all change on a dime. And keep an eye on Nvidia. Even if you don't trade Nvidia, it should be on the corner of your screen. And if all of a sudden Nvidia turns around and pops green, that's not good for the value names. They're going to move opposite right now. So just keep that eye. And you wonder if this Apple Nvidia negative correlation doesn't come back. It hasn't been there for the last couple of weeks, but you just wonder now, you had the Apple coming out, or being reduced in the XLK and Nvidia going up in the XLK. And I just wonder if this isn't a catalyst to see that negative correlation come back, meaning Apple's gain or Nvidia's loss is Apple's gain.
All right. Well, it is
vice versa.
It is 9 a.m. Eastern, so it is time for us to wrap up the show today. Dennis, a lot of people in the chat wishing you good luck tonight.
I'm so nervous.
Man,
how do you relax yourself? How do you to tell everybody? I'm never in this position. My team always sucks, so I never get this far where I'm actually have something to lose here. You have this and I guess some people say Edmonton has nothing to lose. They were down 3-0. Everybody expect them to lose, but you know what? It's a one-game thing now. You win this game, you win the Stanley Cup. It feels like I didn't feel any pressure when they were down 3-0 or 3-1. I feel the pressure now, and I'm not playing the game. I can't imagine what the players are feeling here now. It's got to be a little bit of pressure built here now because expectations now are higher here, and some people are thinking actually Edmonton can actually win. And I mean, they can. It's like a coin flip for this game. So I mean, how do you relax yourself? Not even how would the players, like, I don't know how they would relax themselves. They go into these games. It's amazing. You know, I'm as a fan, I'm a nervous wreck. I can't imagine being a player in one of these games and you can't make a mistake or everybody's going to call you out on it. It's got to be like these guys have nerves of steel, eh?
Boy, it's been since 1990 that the Oilers, is that the last time they won the cup?
1990, and they got there. We already did this once, Joel. In 2006, we were down 3-1 to Carolina, and we came back to force Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and they lost. And this is why I feel like those feelings again, where we were down 3-1. It was in 3-0. You know, we were down 3-1, and we came all the way back, and it was close in the third period. It was 2-1, and then they got the empty netter, and Carolina ended up winning 3-1. And I can't get those thoughts out of my head. I'm like, get that out of my head. Stop thinking about that. This is a complete different series. We have McDavid, you know, like, and it's just different. But again, you know, when you once bitten, twice shy type deal, I was so pumped. I was like, we're going to win the Stanley Cup. And then we didn't. And then it was like, just, you go into depression for like a week. You just like hang your head and it's like, yeah, everybody says, well, that was a good run. I know it just doesn't feel the same.
You know, our chat, not surprised. They're recommending drugs and alcohol. If you want
That's how you relax your drugs and alcohol. That's how you get relaxed through this thing. Drink a few beers, calm the nerves. The pacing will start.
Okay.
Well, all
right. Go ahead. Wrap it up.
Tomorrow will be a T3 Tuesday. You don't want to miss it. Again, 8 a.m. Eastern. As always, we will be here and we'll have some more trade ideas and market breakdown tomorrow. Hope everyone enjoys their Monday. I hope everyone enjoys the game tonight. If you're watching that, like we know Dennis will be, we'll, of course, have our takes on that as well off the top of the show tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. And I hope we get a happy Dennis. With that, thank you for everyone who tuned in today. Please smash the like if you haven't already, and we will see you guys tomorrow morning.